Engaging, enlightening, informative. This is WLOX News This Week.
Hi, thanks for joining us. I'm Dave Elliott, and we're going to start with investigating officer-involved shootings in our state, the expansion of the Capitol Police Department in Jackson, and recruiting future law enforcement officers. Here to talk about all of that, Mississippi Department of Public Safety Commissioner Sean Tindell. Good to see you, Commissioner, back on the coast, and thanks for being with us.
Great to be here.
Let's start with House Bill 1020. We'll stay away from the judicial controversy because we'll talk Capitol Police. It's ignited a bit of a firestorm of controversy up there. I'm curious, before the expansion, what was the Capitol Police Department's responsibility? Just about a mile radius around the state buildings and the Capitol complex?
Maybe a little bit more than that, but not much. And of course, over the years, the role of Capitol Police has changed. If you went back 15, 20 years ago, it was more of a security agency providing security at state buildings. About 4 or 5 years ago, that started to change when they were granted law enforcement powers, so they had a greater presence in the Capital Improvement District once that was established. And then since I've been in office, they've made a bigger push to hire more law enforcement officers and try to treat it more as a real law enforcement agency. And part of that was recognizing some of the crime issues that the city of Jackson was facing and wanting to make Capitol Police a force multiplier for Hinds County and Jackson.
Well, Hinds County, that's what I was curious about. Generally, what is the scope of the jurisdiction now? Are Capitol Police going into neighborhoods, or are they still sticking around the downtown area?
Primarily the downtown area, but there are sections of the Capital Improvement District that cover Belhaven, which is a neighborhood that's situated between the UMMC Medical Center and a lot of state buildings, as well as the state capitol and state buildings in downtown. So it just happened to be in that geographic area that there was some neighborhoods. With the expansion that goes into effect in 2024, there'll be a much greater area that covers other neighborhoods.
And we should mention there are some lawsuits and there are other things going on. And again, that's primarily with the judicial expansion part of this. Well, I want to read an NBC News paragraph here because this is how it's being reported nationally and even by the Jackson media, if I can be honest. The expansion of the Mississippi Capitol Police to patrol all of Jackson was a centerpiece of efforts by mostly white Republican state officials to exert more control over law enforcement in the majority black Democrat-led Capitol. What do you think of that characterization?
I think it's a mischaracterization of what the legislature is trying to do with the Capital Improvement District. The reality is the city of Jackson, and in particular the CCID, is the capital for the state of Mississippi. And folks from all over the state, Gulfport, Tupelo, DeSoto County, Goshen, Natchez, come to their capital city to visit museums, attend court hearings, go to the hospital. There's 5 colleges within the CCID.
But this is being framed as a takeover. That's the word they keep using.
Yeah, and it's not. And I can tell you, I've sat down with the Jackson PD chief, I've sat down with the sheriff of Hinds County, and assured them on multiple occasions, we're not trying to take over your jurisdictions. We're trying to be a force multiplier because we want the city of Jackson and we want the Capital Improvement District to be safe. There's been no attempt to take that over. And in fact, if you look back at it a year ago when we started increasing the law enforcement presence, it was the Jackson PD who took the step to say any 911 calls within the CCID need to be diverted to Capitol Police so that we can handle them throughout the other parts of the city. That was their decision, not the Department of Public Safety's or the legislatures or the CCID. And so ultimately, that was the decision they made. So it's not a takeover. I think if you talk to the law enforcement officials up there, they're happy to have Capitol Police helping. If you talk to many of the residents, they will tell you that they're happy to be there.
But it's been politicized.
It has been. And look, I've attended town hall meetings. I've sat with preachers. We've had those discussions. There was things that I overlooked as a state agency to fail to take into account that this is more of a municipal type police agency at this point. So we've added some community resource officers. We've tried to increase our outreach programs, and we tried to set avenues up so that if citizens have concerns, they can contact us and we can address them.
Okay, well, first we had this horrible situation up in Brandon, a Madison law enforcement officer killed and a Brandon police officer wounded. It was another domestic call. So many of those calls go wrong, one way or another. What, what's happening in terms of trying to de-escalate these? What's your take on that particular situation?
Those are very, very dangerous situations. And if you look at a lot of the law enforcement officers that are shot or killed in the line of duty, a lot of them are centered around responses to domestic calls. And so sometimes de-escalation techniques work there, and sometimes these officers are just ambushed when they arrive. And it's a very dangerous situation for everyone involved. And I think we've got to do a better job of training. But we also have to ask ourselves, we put a lot of burdens on our law enforcement officers. They have to be constitutional scholars. They have to be
social workers.
They have to be mental health therapists. And at some point, I just don't know that it's fair to ask a law enforcement officer to cover all those duties. I mean, if you look at what happened in Bay St. Louis, again, responding to a mental health check. And
it happened in a split second too, and that's what I think a lot of people don't realize. All officer-involved shootings automatically now go to MBI, the Mississippi Bureau of Investigation, under the wing of the Department of Public Safety. Obviously, you don't want the department involved investigating themselves, but a lot of people are frustrated with the pace of information, the release of body cam video. I happen to be one in the media who thinks you have to sort of protect the integrity of the investigation. But how frustrating is that? And when you hear from family members, when you hear from the community, show us the body cam video, we want information now.
And I sympathize with the family members, and we want to address them first. And so we've tried to improve our communications with critical incident coordinators that reach out and talk to family members and give them regular updates on the status of these cases. But like you just mentioned, I'm a big believer in our criminal justice system and how it's set up, and that we don't try individuals in the court of public opinion. And typically we don't release evidence before a case is either completed or trial or dismissed, and we're not going to do that in these cases, because I think whether it's the officer or the other individual involved that gets charged with something, both of them deserve their day in court. And I think when you look at the way we've handled it, it's worked out well. The community will get an opportunity to see it, but we want to make sure that we do a thorough investigation, and we want to not let the quality of the investigation be compromised by the efforts for expediency.
Is there a fear, and I've talked to people in law enforcement about this, that as a result of all of this coverage now of these officer-involved shootings and everything, and fear by many officers about the body cam footage and everything else, that police officers will hesitate now to be proactive, and that could end up costing them in the end?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know that is a fear for law enforcement officers. It's a fear for myself. These incidents happen in a split second. And I often use the analogy that expecting a law enforcement officer to never make a mistake in these high tense situations is unreasonable. It's almost like expecting an NFL quarterback to go 30 for 30 every game and never throw an interception. They're having to make split second decisions, and I think based on what they're doing, you have to give them the benefit of the doubt that they're doing their job with the heart of a public servant and not wanting to hurt anyone.
And before we run out of time, I have to ask you about that situation in Indianola with the 11-year-old boy who called 911. Another domestic dispute, middle of the night, a family dynamic is at play. The officer comes in, the 11-year-old is shot. You guys are investigating that one right now. What can you tell us about it? Anything at this point?
Obviously, again, with our stance on these things, we're going to complete our investigation. And due to the nature of it and the publicity of it, we're making it a priority case. So I anticipate that we will have it completed in due course. And again, it's a very unfortunate situation. I guarantee you that officer that morning did not want to wake up and harm an 11-year-old child or anybody else for that matter. But again, domestics are very dangerous situations to show up to. And the officer had his own set of fears. And again, we need to look at it. Maybe we need to do some better training on the response in those incidents.
All righty. Department of Public Safety Commissioner Sean Tindell, always good to see you, Commissioner. Thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And when we come back, the city of Biloxi is grappling with, in the name of public safety, how to handle big events from Mardi Gras to cruising the coast. We'll have the very latest next.